Welcome to Leadership to Go. My name is Pari Namazie. I am an executive and leadership coach and the managing partner at UNEPA. Join me as I explore leadership insights from all walks of life. So, very, very warm welcome to Raul Cuadrado. Raul, it's such a pleasure seeing you on Leadership to Go. And I've known you for several years, Raul. I can't remember when exactly we met, but it was a few years ago. And a short history and background to Raul. Raul works at DHL Express. You are presently the Vice President of Customer Service in DHL Express Spain, but you've already been working with DHL for 26 years and have really gone through so many roles there, from, operations, from strategy and transformation, and now back in your home country in Spain. And I know you worked around the world. Very rich leadership journey. So very warm welcome, Raul.
Thank you, Pari. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. It's a real pleasure having the chance to talk to you, Pari. I always enjoy having the chance to spend time together because we have always very enriching conversations. I'm also glad to spend some time with whoever is gonna listen to us later on. So looking forward to our conversation, Pari.
Yeah, me too. And so a little bit of background, Raul and I, we had a coaching engagement, a few coaching engagements together, and it was one of the from me on my side, it was one of the richest coaching experiences I had as a coach, because it wasn't only coaching, but it was I remember Raul, you throw so many different things because you're such a fast thinker. And I remember you throw all of these different things out at me, and then you'd say, "Can you keep up with me?" I'm like going all over the place. And I love that because my mind goes all over the place. So they were very, very rich discussions. It wasn't only coaching, it was life, it was politics, it was leadership, it was family, it was so many beautiful things. And I always say for me, the space of coaching, it's whole person. You can't separate that. You can't separate the intellect from the emotion, from the heart, from the head. It's all one person. So I loved our discussions. So really, thank you.
Thank you, Pari. I absolutely enjoy the coaching relationship with you. And I completely agree on your view on how the growth and the development and the coaching should take place, because we are, as leaders, we are not a partial person. We come in a pack. We are the person who we are, with our personality, with our values, with our fears, with our ambitions, with our challenges, and that comes as a whole. And I think it's about being humble, and it's about having a clear idea of where you want to go. And it's very nice if you have the support of someone who supports you along the journey, and who asks the right questions, and who challenges you, and who also gives you a bit of different perspectives on things. And that's what you did with me. And I feel I really got a lot of that, of those discussions. And yeah, I would strongly recommend to people who are thinking about starting their coaching journey to go for it.
And just on that topic, Raul, I sometimes wonder, people ask me this, like leaders will come and say, "Why do I need a coach? I've got this all figured out." For myself, when I started my coaching journey, it was such a fulfilling thing for me personally to go through, to learn about coaching, and for me it's holding space for someone. I remembered a client once told me, "What are you going to do for me as a coach? What will you give me?" And the answer that came to me was, it's a space of love. It's holding
Mhm.
someone in love. It's seeing their entirety and being their cheerleader, and sometimes tough love, and sometimes soft love, and sometimes just hearing someone. It's a very beautiful space. What led you to coaching? Why did you come to coaching?
I think several ideas. First one is, I see many leaders who live projecting an image, who are wearing a mask, and who come across as very solid, very confident, no mistakes. They know all the answers. And the challenge with that is first, it's never true, because we are human beings and we have our strengths and our development areas, our weaknesses. And second is, I don't think it's a healthy way of projecting yourself, because it's a heavy load to wear that mask. Then if you are a genuine leader, then it starts with understanding your development areas. It starts with understanding when you are not the best version of yourself for the people you are working with, which is not only the people you're working with, probably it's also the people you're living with and the people you're interacting with, because as I was saying before, we are just one person. And it's great to work on yourself on your own. Okay, it's great to do this self-reflection and understand where you could do better. And I'm talking about this in because there is a lot of blah 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 as well about growth and positive thinking about development. It's not an easy journey. It's a demanding experience, and it starts with, in my view, understanding what makes you successful also has a dark side. Okay, has a side that is being somehow a burden, and becoming a broader person and having like different sides, and being somehow more complete as a person and as a leader, developing things that intuitively wouldn't come to your mind, and then developing these things, working on these things that are your strengths but also are your weaknesses is not easy, because you are so proud of how you are, and if you are a successful leader, you feel confident that that's good. Okay, and changing these things that are so ingrained on your personality and that have made you successful is not easy, because it goes deep inside. Having the help of someone to go in that journey, if you are convinced that you want to go in that journey, because doing coaching, if you are not convinced about doing this tough work, is good, and you have to find someone who's good and who can really help you to grow. And then it's about being, I think what you said is very critical, is creating this trust environment and this caring environment where really you can get something nice out of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about what makes you successful might also have a dark side. And it's
Absolutely.
really beautiful that you said that, because I think it takes a great deal of self-awareness for someone to recognize there may be their patterns that are holding us back. They're patterns that we repeat without knowing why we're doing that. And it's not only in our professional life, they might be in our personal life. Many times they've come out of our childhood without really realizing what it is and why that happened. Um, if I can ask you this question, in your leadership journey, it's a rather personal question, Raul, so if you don't want to answer it,
Oh,
leave it.
oh, no.
It's just because you and I have this space.
Yes, yes.
We talk about these things. But where was a dark side of yours that you needed to explore? Are
Mm.
you okay with that question?
No, I'm completely fine, and I think it could be helpful for some people who could have a similar pattern. Yeah? So I come from being a young kid, fast solving problems and good with science, uh, and then I come from being, and I graduated as an engineer, so very structured mindset,
Mm,
everything fits in boxes, and it's easy to see what is wrong and right. Okay, and you can solve very quickly problems because you are trained for that and you have a good brain for that. And then that takes you somehow also, and I guess it's also a matter of personality, to be judgmental. Okay, because everything is about good or bad, and then everything is about, okay, how I turn the bad into good. And and then that's good, because it makes you a very good problem solver, and if you have the abilities, you can solve a lot of things and you can help a lot of things, and you could say that's fantastic. Okay, but it has a dark side. Okay,
mm,
because and I know for many people this can sound pretty obvious. What is good and what is bad?
mm,
It's not an absolute truth. Okay, and what is good for some people is not good for others. Okay, and also putting this labels or good or bad has already a very bad connotation. And then unconsciously you put that label on people, who are doing certain things. And then that creates, even if you have a very good social relationship with people, that creates difficulties because you are unconsciously putting those labels on people who are doing certain things. And to build relationships and to support other people, that's not adding value. And then this is just an example. How you grow, especially as a leader that has to work with many people, from being a very good problem solver and identifying what works and what doesn't work in your mind, together with being a good supporter for other people to grow and to have a good impact on their lives. And this is an example of, okay, it's good to have these analytic abilities, these problem-solving abilities, this, if you want, fast thinking, but you need to complement it. And it's not only about being a good person, and it's about how you develop abilities to
Mhm.
understand what other people need
Mhm.
and to develop on that. And that was also a personal journey for me, for events that happened in my life. So I moved from having studied industrial engineering to moving into business administration, and now on psychology, which is my passion, because now what I'm fascinated is about uh, what drives people, what motivates people, what scares people, and how you can have a positive impact on people. And I think that's, yeah, I could tell you more examples, but that's an example of how something that is a strength could be a
Mhm.
limitation, and then how you can maybe soften your profile and develop abilities to have a better impact on yourself and on others.
Yeah. And I mean, as you said that, I could hear your own leadership journey, which
Yes,
coming
absolutely.
from the engineer and the problem solver, and then, becoming more self-aware that how do you grow people? Because by solving their problems and being fast, you're not helping people to grow and develop. You're just giving them a solution. But
Absolutely.
really, growth is where they start thinking about where is the solution and how to think of that solution. And for someone who's such an active thinker as you are, holding that space and not giving the answer and taking away the labels, that's quite a journey. How did you break that?
First is what drives you, and I tell you what drives me the most now is to help people to grow. Okay,
Mm,
so the satisfaction that I find in just creating the conditions, which by the way is very easy because it's about just creating some space for people, and I think for a leader is simple things, creating this space for people, identifying what people may need, and creating the space for them to shine. Okay, and
mm,
being able, I always like to use this expression of being able to see the diamond inside the coal. You see coal, but you see the diamond,
mm,
and then giving people confidence and giving people feedback and giving a bit of guidance, not so much, and then people just start to shine, and you feel some recognition as well from them back, and then you realize that that's when really you have a multiplicative effect. Okay, because what you can do is, per definition, even if you are good in something small, but when you have impact on people, then this has a multiplicative effect. And somehow this, how I came there first is because I also have my personal difficulties, and I had to do an inner journey to understand that, well, I also am not, I'm very driven, and I can do a lot of things, but I have my development areas, I have my weaknesses, and I have to work on them. And by doing this journey also, it also helped me to connect with people and to understand what other people need. Okay. And then as you start to work on that with other people and you see that it works, then is how somehow a process that is self-propelled, because you find so much pleasure on having this impact on people that then you can do it growing. And also what I would like to add this here, because again, I don't think it's always nice. There are difficult moments and there are difficulties, but the whole purpose driving this is a bigger purpose, and it's something that keeps you connected.
When you say bigger purpose, what do you mean by big purpose?
What I mean is that you are you are not doing this for just, I don't know, power or money or feeling important. You are doing this because you feel that somehow connects with a higher aspiration in your side, inside of you, something that you feel is impactful, something that when I always like to say this, when you are old and you are on your bed and you are close to going somewhere else, you think, okay, I think I enjoy life and I think I was somehow a decent person and I had a nice impact on people.
Mm,
This feeling of I had a nice impact on people, what I did was meaningful,
mm,
which could be different for different people who could listen to this conversation. I think that's what is important. That's what I mean by purpose. Whatever that makes you feel it was worth it. It was meaningful.
mm. And again, through your words, I'm hearing that journey that you've been on, and it's the inner growth and the inner journey. And we always talked about it's a muscle that you build. It's changing from that judgmental voice and putting labels on people to just holding the space, checking, hearing that voice of judgment, um, and shifting that, making that voice a little less heard and
Mm,
making the voice, as you say, of yourself, of your purpose louder. That the bigger goal here is to connect
absolutely.
with people. Yeah, it's lovely to hear that journey within you. And I know I'm going to jump to this question now. I know so many people who are at an earlier stage of their careers.
Mm.
What is an advice you would give them?
Several things. First is I can see with some younger people with potential that they could look at growing in the leadership ladder as something not so attractive, or with they can look at it with some level of apprehension. Okay, in terms of if I go in that direction, I'm not going to have personal life, or
Mm,
if I go in that direction, I'm going to lose potentially my soul, because then I'm going to have to do things that I couldn't feel proud of. Okay. My view is that there is an alternative way of looking at it, which is you can do that, not losing your soul, but I would go one level up, just having and doing it with a meaningful purpose. Okay, and if you feel that you are connected with your inner values, then it's very fulfilling, because you have the ability to have an impact on much more people, and that's very nice. Okay. And then in terms of the balance of your personal life, I think it's a lot about also ensuring that you protect what is important in your personal life. And I think I'm a living example that you can do both things. And I'm not naive. It's not easy, because it's demanding, and uh, it's a challenge. It's a bit like keeping a lot of balls, like these guys who are playing with the balls, and it's keeping a lot of balls on the air, but it's very rewarding. Is a matter of living an intense life with a purpose. So I think, yeah, those moments of difficulties are worth it and make you personally grow. So it's a journey that for people who could be considering it, I would
mm.
recommend.
Yeah, and I definitely see that as a challenge we're facing with the new, with the Gen Z's coming into the market. Maybe it's looking up at what does the corporate look like? Some of my own nephews who are working very hard as lawyers and consultants and working 16-hour days, and they are already saying, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I have
Mm,
no life. And I don't want to sell my soul to the organization. I want a better life. I want purpose in my life. I want to have impact in my life. And I wonder sometimes you use this, selling your soul to the organization, but the people who might, it's also what motivates you. Why are you there? And
mm,
sometimes I think that's such an important question about leadership at the top. We always say it's such a lonely journey for leaders,
mm,
sitting at the top. What motivates them to get there? Sometimes it is power, and sometimes it is um, you have to have a much harder sense of leadership. Uh, but what would the young people be looking at for a role model, do you think? What would motivate them?
I think is what would motivate me. It's like is doing something that makes sense. It sounds like simple, but in today's world, for most people, money, don't take me wrong, but money is not the same as 100 years ago. Most people live a good, decent life. Okay, so getting a bit, especially our kids, for instance, the next generation that is coming, uh, most things were easier. Okay, so this thing of I need to cover that basic side of my life is kind of better
Mm,
covered today.
mm,
Uh, Power is a value that in the past was somehow much more important, especially for males. Okay, but I think power is not bad or good. Is power for what? Because power is just like an engine. You have power, but power for what? And power per se, I think is not so attractive for young people. Okay, they are more driven by purpose because they can allow they can the situation allows that, because now they are in a situation, going to the Maslow pyramid, they have the lower levels of the pyramid cover, and they are driven by having a purpose, making a positive impact, and enjoying and finding good inside.
mm,
And I think if you live your leadership career with those values,
mm,
it's very rewarding, because also what I can see for some young people there, we have also some, we have more psychological problems and more difficulties as an average. And it's also because of this thing of when you are busy and you have to fight for your life, you don't have time to look inside. And sometimes when you look inside and you don't find anything, okay. And I'm not saying that the only way to find this anything inside is through progressing in a company. You can do it working in a charity, or you can do it working for your family, or you can do it painting or playing music, and there are or improving your garden. There are multiple ways to do that, but there is also a way to do that by doing something nice in the company. Okay.
yeah.
um, and I think there are a lot of analysis as well there in terms of the impact of having a work, having a routine, the positive impact that has in your life. But if you make it with purpose, then it's for me a very
Mm.
rounded solution to have a nice life.
Mm. And the word purpose is very important. It's connecting to your values, as you say. And if you don't know about that, I think it's really, that's the inner journey, the inner work we talk about to do that, to build your self-awareness, to reflect on that. Um, but it's also one of the things that we don't see very much in the corporate world is connection to our emotions. So somehow
Yeah.
we sort of say emotions are, that's for home. That's for your personal life. Don't bring that to the office. And it's almost like you're saying, let's close, lock your arm to your body and not use your arm anymore because we're emotional beings as well. How do you as a leader connect with your emotions? And, is it something good in your opinion? How do you do that?
I love that question. First, there are a lot of psychological and studies about this. Rationality without emotion is not rational. Because at the end you have a thought in your mind, but
Mhm.
should be driven by something, should go into a direction, and the direction of your rationality should be emotion, should be your values, should be what makes you feel good in a deeper way. Okay, so this idea of I'm very rational, I'm not emotional, if you look inside, doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, we are human beings, and even I would say we are animals. We have a limbic system that is driven by emotion, so we cannot get rid of emotion. So this idea of a leader that puts aside emotion, I think, is very dysfunctional. Okay, it's a projection. It's not a genuine person. It's trying to project an image. I'm not affected by emotions. That's number one. Number two is we do things for empathy, for connection. So okay, somebody can come to us and explain us reasons why we should do that something, and that's useful, but it's much more impactful and has a much bigger impact doing something because I like that person, because I feel connected with that person, because I like what that person is saying, or how that person makes me feel. Okay. And
Mm.
that's the reason by emotions. It's much easier to connect with somebody who has flaws, with somebody who you see as a true person with true values and with true caring. Okay, because then you say, I want to do that for that person. And I think that should be the aspiration of a leader, that people do things because is that person is worth it.
Mm. It also reminds me not only of the word emotion, but you're talking about connection, but vulnerability comes to my mind. And
Absolutely.
how do you show emotion and vulnerability in your work?
I think I think first is it takes you need to understand, and I try to do this every day. How do I feel today? Okay. What's, what is my general feeling today? And you can say, no, but I'm always good. That's not true. You have your ups and downs, and then I think it's good to understand, to stop a bit, understand why. I feel super good. Why? Or
Mm.
I feel so today. Why? It has something to do with work, something to do with your family, something to do with the sports or with your health, or and then when you have this self-awareness, and if you how you are feeling and you know why, I think it's perfectly fine sharing it. Okay,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that you are constantly telling everybody how you feel and why, because that would be again not very functional. But I think, for instance, if you are not feeling good and sometimes you want to share it, it's very healthy with the people with whom you have trust, because that builds a genuine personal connection. Okay, and also at the end of the day, we need to talk about what happens to us, and when you have difficulties, this is also a way to reduce your burden, because just simply by talking about it, you feel better about it. Okay.
Mhm.
Then you create a good dynamics, because then other people probably would start to do that as well. And you create an environment where vulnerability and explaining that you have difficulties or recognizing you make a mistake is normal. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I can understand for some leaders, obviously, if I'm saying every day that I have difficulties, or if I say every day that they made a mistake, people will jump off the boat. If the captain is not sure, then we are dead. And I'm not saying that. You need to find the balance, okay? Because also you have to be somehow like a rock, like a reference for the others, okay? So it's not about doing that constantly, but it's about showing your moments of vulnerability, because my experience is that people are great when you do that, and the reaction is very positive, and that builds very good bonds.
Yeah. Raul, I'm wondering about that. It made me think that at what point can you do that? Because you don't want to be seen as someone who's not sure. You have to be hard and at rock, as you said. But I wonder if you need some time to build that trust first in the team and the level of competence, and then sort of move to also sharing vulnerability. Do you think the competence has to
I,
come
I,
first?
yes, I think you cannot do that. I agree. If you are just somebody who is struggling, then you are not that reference as a leader. Okay. But I think again, it's about being genuine. Normally, you should feel okay, and you should be performing. And this thing of I have difficulty should be kind of exceptional, because
Mm,
if not, then you have to handle it in a
mm,
different way. Uh, but I think, it's normal. One day it's unavoidable that one day you are not the best version of you, and then maybe you are too tough on people, or too aggressive, or too demanding. Okay, then just going back and saying sorry. Under pressure with this, my apologies. I think that's perfectly fine, even if it is the first week that you are working with somebody, because they see a decent person on the other side.
Mm.
So yes, I think they need to see competence and they need to see value. Okay.
Mhm.
But I think building that relationship from the beginning in terms of seeing that human being on the other side is important, especially because still we are not used to these leaders that say, oh, I was wrong, or I'm struggling with this. And I insist, I'm not saying this, you should be doing this every day. But if you have not said it in the last month, in my view, you have a challenge because you did it for sure. And then how you can encourage people to do that, which I think is very good for the organization if you don't lead by example.
Yeah, very true. Leading by example. Can you give me an example of when you were vulnerable with your team and what happened?
Well, I can give several examples. The first one is when I had like serious personal issues, okay, because sometimes we think that these are two separate buckets of life. And when I talk to my colleagues and friends, about my challenges at home with my wife or my kid, with whatever. Um, then it's interesting because normally what happens is the other person starts to talk about their own challenges after a while. Okay. And
Mm.
that creates a very natural conversation where you don't see only a colleague on the other side. You see a
Mm.
complete human being with personal struggles. Okay. And that works very well. But also when you say, look, at work, at times, the pressure is enormous, and you say, look, this happened to me a couple of times, saying, look, now I'm really struggling. I need your help because this is very big and this is a significant issue and I really need your help. And again, the reaction of the team always in those cases was exceptional. Okay. Of course, that takes building the relationship before, okay,
Mm.
because that's all based on trust.
Yeah, very true. That was a nice example. I have so many more questions, and I know our time is running out. Raul, I'll come back for a minute to your career because I
Mhm.
know you had this regional role, right? And you worked in different countries in different roles, and you grew through the leadership ladder. There are two questions I have. When was your shift from manager to leader, and what changed?
Well, I think in what I'm going to say, I don't know if it sounds great, but it's the truth. At the beginning of my career, for me, people were that factor in the equation that they spoil the results. It's you plan everything, you find a nice solution, and then people start to do weird things and spoil their solution. And then it's this thing that you don't control and do you get upset with because why they don't see it. 1 + 1 is 2. And then eventually it's 4, 3, or -2. Why do they make this so complicated? And I think this is about management. It's like
Mm.
you have your plan in your mind, you do your, and then things happen
Mm.
and are not what you expected because you are managing. Okay. And I think the journey to leadership is understanding first that truth is not that absolute anymore. And second, is about how you make people grow, how you connect with your purpose, how you help people to connect with their purpose, and how you make the whole thing meaningful. And I think in that journey is when you become a leader. And in my case, if you ask me when that happened, was a mix of personal difficulties in my life and challenges at work, okay, which took me to realize it's about me. The one who has to grow and the one who has to change
Mm.
is me. And then I can support others and then I can help others. So I think the journey to leadership it starts with an internal journey. It's about
Mm.
looking inside and understanding what drives you, and it's looking inside and understanding
Mm.
what is acting as a brake
Mm.
and working to get rid of those brakes and then connecting with the other people.
Mm.
Um, Without going into the details of those professional and personal difficulties, I think that's when I make the
Yeah.
change.
That makes so much sense because, we always say leadership development starts with self, then goes to the team, then goes to the organization. So it's that journey. And there's sometimes that a manager cannot be a leader. I don't know if you've experienced this in your career, but where would you say that happens? So some people, they're promoted too soon into a leadership position and they're not ready. And a lot of times they don't get the training and sadly they fail. And where have you seen something like that happen and why?
I think, yeah, there are many good examples of bad leadership. Okay, and well, the first thing I'm gonna say is an obvious one that we have heard many times is not about promoting the best agent will get the best supervisor, and promoting the best supervisor will be the best manager, or promoting the best manager will be the best director, because the competencies that you require as you go up are different. Okay. And I think this is a common failure. But also I think it's important to identify what is inside, what is driving that person. So it's not only about the skills, the abilities, which obviously is critical, the social skills, the intellectual skills, the abilities is important, but it's about what is driving that person. And
Mm,
what we need to do, and our responsibility as leaders is to promote the
mm,
people who have the right values, the right purpose. Okay, I insist it's not. This is not. Companies are not charity work, so I'm not saying that should be people that cannot make difficult decisions, because
mm,
management is about compromises and difficult decisions. But it's about having the right, uh, how can I say, the right background, the right basement that
mm,
is driving your decisions. And I think that's the most important thing, that you have people with the right ambition, the ambition to have a
mm.
positive impact.
Mm. I love that you keep using the word ambition and motivation and drive. So it's connecting to what is it really that you're looking for and how can we support that? And back to your journey, um, when you were telling me that you use this lovely metaphor. So you have come from all these regional roles and now you're back in Spain.
Yes.
And I just have to read this because you
I,
talked.
I can do it for
Go
you,
on.
Pari.
Tell us the
Basically,
metaphor.
I started in the country in support roles, and then I moved to the function to the region, and I have been working in the strategic roles, and that was fascinating, and I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed it a lot, and I have the privilege of working with very talented individuals and learning a lot from them. But I always have the feeling that we were doing projects and visiting people and helping people and trying to help people, but I always have the feeling that you were improving somebody else's home, and helping them to put some nice furniture and what you consider nice aligned with the person. But then you go and you come back, and then the house doesn't look similar anymore, because of course it's the house of somebody else, and they are living it. They are living in there the way they like it, and then you have the feeling that I'm improving for somebody, but that doesn't stay. Okay, so it came to a point that I realized I need to have my own house and improve my own house, and having the feeling I have the direct impact on people and the direct impact on clients. And that's what I have now. And I have a lovely house that I'm enjoying a lot, and I feel is beautiful, and where we are doing great things. And that has been my journey, and now I'm really enjoying my own house in working in a country organization.
Does it seem strange to come from this big regional role that you've been in working and interacting with so many countries and people and projects and strategy and then only focusing on one? Somehow it feels like you had this big picture in mind and suddenly it's become smaller. Does it, is it like,
Yes, but I think whoever could be listening to this, my strong advice would be to doing this kind of journey. So going from countries to region, from region to global, if they can, from one function to the other, because I think that's a very enriching experience. I think if you have the chance to work in higher roles, you understand what drives the big decision, where the big decisions are coming from, why things are done a certain way, why very often they cannot look at the details because they are managing the big picture, and also it's very attractive, to work in the cockpit of the big captain and have that perspective. However, then when you go back to the shop floor, you have the opportunity of working with individuals and in a long-term basis and going with them through the whole journey and connecting with the customers and understanding things in much detail and having a lasting impact. Okay, and that's beautiful. And also learning, because when you are in the real world, that is a bit like the metaphor of the small blanket or the housewife. In a small blanket, you in a PowerPoint everything fits, but in the real world you have limitations. The blanket is small, and you have to decide if you pull too much, you leave your wife on the floor. And so it's about the balance, and not everything is possible. And you have to manage, like the housewife, you have to manage your small budget, and you can do just certain things, and you cannot go to the vacation you want, and you have to make difficult decisions. And having that perspective, and this 360 perspective that you have when you are in the shop floor, sometimes could be lost when you are up in the higher position. So if you have the chance to go in this journey in this direction, up and down, several times, I think it's very enriching because you have a more profound and complete view of the reality.
Yeah, a complete view of the reality. And I love what you said, that it's impact. It's the deep
Yes.
impact that you can have.
Yes.
Raul, my last question for you is,
Yes.
what next on your journey? What comes next?
I have to say first, I really enjoy where I am now. So it's not this push for I need to move, and for me this is interesting because I always thought that being here in real life, or because I'm a quite uh, intense person that needs constant change, and 3 years have gone by very fast. So I think that's something worth saying, I think. But I like to keep on growing. And if you ask me, the first idea that comes to my mind is to keep on growing in the country organization and to go to the next level. Because it's kind of connected with what I just told you. Is this thing of the project that we have started, and this nice house, making it bigger with more rooms and with more people living in it, and I really love that idea. But I don't close other doors. So if other opportunities come, I I would love to explore them.
Hmm. Thank you. I know you have a curious and a continuous learning mindset.
Mhm.
So I know the journey will be exciting wherever it takes you. Raul, thank you
Thank you.
so much. So much. I really appreciated your wisdom that you always share with me. Thank you.
It was really nice, as usual, to talk to you, Pari. You create a very nice environment where it's very easy to talk. So thank you very much for this time that we spent together. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.